made a huge mistake. I have nowhere to put these books. I'm currently sitting down on a beanbag chair with nowhere to place 20 books. This is going to go poorly. I didn't think that one through. Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and today I'm going to be doing another book haul. I say another, I've only really done one this year, but that's besides the point. Let's get into the video. It's been a running theme this year and I kind of feel like a broken record saying it, but in 2020 I really decided to focus on starting to get down my TBR, or at least not bringing in as many books as I was reading, like read more books than I was bringing in, and I have really succeeded in that. And because of that, this is only my second book haul of this year. I posted a couple ebook hauls interspersed with that because I enjoy the act of hauling books a lot. I think it's really fun to discuss the new things you've gotten and you haven't really had room to be disappointed by anything yet. So I really like the act of hauling, and these books span from July to early October when I'm filming this, and I've bought a little bit more recently. There's a couple books that I'm really excited for that are coming out, so I've been purchasing a little bit more than what I ideally would want to be, but I'm not mad at it. I'm excited for a lot of these new shiny books, so yeah. Might as well get into it. I fully don't remember anything that I've said in this intro, so hopefully it's usable, but let's get on to the books. The first book that I bought in July, I can't remember at this point in time, was Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a very anticipated release of mine. I love Elizabeth Acevedo's work. I've got one here and one below me. This is my contemporary YA shelf. I have not yet read this. I've been praying for the audiobook to come through one of my apps, and it finally has. So thank you to all of the people who've been talking about it with me recently. I truly think you brought this into being. I did just start this morning. I love Elizabeth Acevedo's stories and her way with words. This follows two half-sisters who, one lives in the United States and the other lives in the Dominican, and they don't really know that the other exists until their father dies in a plane crash, and it kind of just like shatters their world to pieces, and they have to like rectify with the father that they thought he was, with who he was, and the fact that they don't have him anymore. And I am so excited to read this. I love Elizabeth Acevedo. Her way with words is just beautiful. And oh, I forgot to mention, this one is told in verse like the Poet X. I then decided to purchase from Book Depository Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This is his first ever published work, I believe. I don't actually really remember what this story follows, other than the fact that I think there's either this like sort of plague or virus that is kind of making people zombie-like in this fantasy world in the Cosmere, and I thought that you had to read this to read The Way of Kings, which has been my goal, to read the Cosmere to get to The Way of Kings. I then researched how you can do it and how he recommends it, and that's not actually the way he recommends. So I have not yet read this. I do want to, but I'm going to read some other books in the Cosmere first. A lot of people don't like this, but then there's this small cohort of people that really love it and stand by it, so I'm interested to see how I feel about this. This is going to sound very weird, but I feel like a magpie. I'm sitting on my floor on a beanbag chair, so I feel like I'm in my nest surrounded by all my pretty goodies, and that has what's been running through my head whilst doing this haul. I have one of my most anticipated releases of the year, like top two, and that is The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. I feel like I've been talking about this nonstop over the course of months, but I love this series with my whole heart. It is officially my favorite series of all time, which is wild to be saying. Like, there was a series that had been in my heart for so long, but the David Bad trilogy has replaced it. I love this series so much. The City of Brass follows Nahri, who is a con woman living kind of on the streets of Cairo in the 18th century. She then participates in a con gone way wrong and awakens some ancient spirits that are determined to kill her. She gets whisked away to the magical and mythical city of Brass, where she can find protection, but she realizes along the way that her identity isn't as what it seems, and she gets embroiled in these court politics. And I love this series with my whole heart. I actually have an entire dedicated reading vlog to this series, my first ever reading vlog, like experiencing this for the first time, and I really love that I have that snapshot into when I read it, and I'll have it linked down below or on the screen if you're interested in watching it. It is full of spoilers. Joke's on me, I realize I actually have a second copy of The Empire of Gold because I subscribed to the fake rate of it, but it is currently up there with a cover on it, so I'm not grabbing it. But the next two books I bought, I have both read now, and that's Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. These are books 1 and 2 in the Brown Sisters series. It is a romance series that follows the Brown sisters. The first book follows Chloe, who is disabled and experiences a lot of chronic pain, and she then has like a sort of near-death experience, and she realizes that she wants to really shake up her life and experience new things. And then her superintendent Red kind of comes along, and she doesn't really like him, but he kind of fits the bad boy thing that she's going for, and they strike up a deal, and it's great. I love these books. These are, I think, my favorite romance books I've ever read, and specifically Get a Life, Chloe Brown, I just absolutely fell in love with. Wow, I realize I've bought a lot of new books, but the next 5 are actually all books that I found used in the same bookstore. I actually had a stack of 8 books in my hand, and I just could not go through with purchasing 8 books when I've been like really restricting my buying. So I actually put back the 3 books in the Neapolitan novels by Elena Ferrante. I do desperately want to read that series, but I don't own book 1, and I had books 2, 3, and 4 in my hand, so I just couldn't justify doing it. I do desperately want to read that series though in the future. Anyway, long story short, I found some really cool things at the thrift store. The first being My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This is somewhat recently released. I think it came out in like March of this year, and it follows a woman looking back on her teen years when she was in a relationship with her teacher. And I believe this teacher has been accused of assault by like another student or young woman, and she kind of has to grapple with how I don't think she thinks that she was abused, but obviously this was a situation that involved grooming. She was a young teen. I believe this is supposed to be very hard and heartbreaking to read. I really want to give this a try, and I'm so glad I found it at the thrift store. Like, it was pretty recently released, so that's always an exciting find. I also managed to find Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one of Taylor Jenkins Reid's, I guess, less popular novels. This one follows a main character named Hannah, who I think is reeling from a really terrible breakup. She also possibly lost her job. She doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life. Her friend then takes her out to a bar one night when she's in her hometown, and she runs into her old high school boyfriend, and then she has a choice to leave with her boyfriend or to leave with her friend, and basically you get the concurrent storylines between her two choices. I want to read more from Taylor Jenkins Reid, so I was happy to find this at this thrift store. This was a cool find. Also, the spine is really pretty. I really like the shade of orange. It is so petty. Another book that I'm really excited that I grabbed. I'm excited for all of these. I'm sorry for saying that word, but The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I just noticed that this says The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I believe they changed or tweaked the title a little bit to not make it so related to Taylor Jenkins Reid, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So many of the same words there. This I'm very interested in reading. It, I think, is sort of like a murder mystery where this character keeps waking up in the body of other people, and he has to discover who's killing someone, and like time is running out. I have seen critiques though for some really like fatphobic language, which I'm already not impressed with, but I do want to give this a shot. We'll see how I feel. I like this sort of idea of a closed mystery with a sci-fi twist, because we all know I don't really love mysteries, but a whodunit with sci-fi seems pretty cool. A book that I have already read, I read this a few years ago via audiobook, and that is If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. This is an Own Voices novel following a trans teen girl who moves in with her dad to a new high school because she was having a really rough time with her mom and her old high school. If I remember correctly, she has a sort of strained relationship with her father who doesn't really understand her and her gender, and she also manages to start falling in love with a really popular boy at her high school, and she just has to navigate that, her trans identity, and possibly opening up to the boy that she's really, really falling for. I really enjoyed this at the time of reading it. Clearly, I could use a reread in the future because I don't remember all of the details. I also liked, from what I remember, the performance of the audiobook, but I'm glad to finally have this in my hands. Another really intriguing, exciting, whatever find was Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This is a YA horror graphic novel that I see a lot of people recommend to read at this time of year. I think there are a couple different shorter tales in here. It's not one continuous story, but I was so excited to find it because you don't often find graphic novels at a used bookstore. I do plan on reading this sometime later on in October for one of my obligatory spooky-ish reads. So I'm happy to have this in my hands, and it's actually really heavy, so we're gonna push it away. I finally decided which edition I was going to pick with The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I finally decided on the UK editions, which they're split into parts 1 and 2. It was such a roller coaster for me to decide which fucking edition I was going to use. I wanted the North American paperback, but then I was annoyed because you have to usually wait a year to get the paperback, and I really think I'm gonna love this series and I want to get involved in reading it right away. It was a whole thing. And then I finally just said, you know what, fuck it, let's match all of your editions. I know nothing about this. So much so that I've specifically avoided when people are talking about this on BookTube. I just really want to go into this knowing nothing and being surprised. It was sort of like that when I read Mistborn, and I just want to discover this world sort of on my own. I'm possibly going to have a reading vlog dedicated to this. I don't know. Again, I'm not the biggest on reading vlogs, but on a special series or something I'm really looking forward to, I like the idea of doing that. So be on the lookout for that. I then decided to purchase the Silvered Serpents by Roshni Chokshi. I got really swept up into the hype for it, just on a whim, and I liked The Gilded Wolves. I gave it just under a 4-star, I think 3.75 out of 5 stars. But there was a lot of good buzz for this. I'm excited to see where the characters go, so I decided to pre-order this. And yeah, I'm very intrigued to read it. The Gilded Wolves I actually have a full review for, so I will leave linked. But it follows this sort of ragtag group living in, is it also 18th century Paris? I don't remember the time, the era exactly. There are secret societies, and one of our main characters is determined to get back at these secret societies because he's lost his inheritance, and so they do these puzzles and quests and are trying to pull off this really big heist. I need a good refresher on what happens in the first book before I continue on with this, but I'm very interested to see how it goes. This giving me hella wintry vibes, so I'm probably going to read this in the winter, but I'm happy to have this in my hands. It was such a on a whim purchase, but I'm not mad at it. Holy shit, this is hefty. I decided to pick up Jade War by Fonda Lee. I am really interested in continuing on with Jade City. It's one of my absolute favorite books of the year. I also have a review for that. Look at me actually reviewing shit for once. Jade City follows the Call family. They're one of the 2 major crime families in this small island nation. It's an urban fantasy that focuses on jade, which imbues people with magical abilities, and they are basically trying to hold on to their territory. There's another bad family like encroaching upon them and like mafia things ensue in an urban fantasy, and it's great. Jade War is the sequel, which I'm very excited to continue on with. I'm actually currently doing a reread of Jade City because I read it during the height of like quarantine and being isolated, and so some of the details did not stick the way I wanted to, so I'm rereading Jade City. I'm taking part in the Keeping Up with the Calls blog thing. I'll have the relevant links linked down below, but I really like this. This paperback is freaking heavy. Holy shit, it's weighty. How many pages are in it? Well, it's not that bad. It's only 600 pages, but she's heavy. With Jade City, I just decided again to say fuck it. August and September were rough months for me, so I decided a little retail therapy wouldn't hurt, so I was buying some of the books that I've been really wanting for a while. Jade War being one of them, Brandon Sanderson's books being some of them, and Realm of Ash being one of them. This is the companion novel to Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. I also have a review for Empire of Sand if you are interested. This takes place 10 years in the future and follows our main character's sister in this one, and I believe this takes on more of the political machinations of this world, and I'm just excited to read on in the series. I really hope that our characters in the first one make an appearance, but I'm not sure if they do so. I really like the way Tasha Suri did romance in the first book, so I'm hoping for another really great romance in here. I'm happy to have this in my hands. Next thing I found used, and I have really split emotions on it now. It's one of the plights of fantasy being one of your favorite genre. Old fantasy doesn't really hold up over time, even though you still want to read it. I found The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the first book of short stories in the Witcher series, and I've been really intrigued to read this series. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. I really want to watch the Netflix show. I also know that this is incredibly misogynistic. I believe these were first published in like the 90s and then translated to English. So I don't know when I'll get to this. I was hoping to get to this before the second season of the Netflix show comes out, but I don't know. It's not something I'm super rushing to read right at this moment in time. I feel like I've been giving a reason for why I've purchased every single book on this list, but it's literally just for me justifying it to my own brain why it was okay to purchase them. It's so dumb, truly so dumb, but I've been so hard on like the finish your TBR blah blah blah, even though that is years in the making. I feel like I have to justify my purchases to myself, and it's getting redundant, but I decided on a whim to pick up Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have been dying to read this book. It was one of my most anticipated releases of last year, and I just never managed to pick it up. This is set in the Jazz Age in Mexico, and our main character, I don't think has like the greatest life, but she ends up discovering this box and opening it, and it in turn opens to discover the Mayan god of death, and they have to go on an adventure together, I think to the underworld, to do something, and I don't even care what they have to do. Underworld, god of death, sort of Hades and Persephone-ish inspired. It's like ticking boxes left, right, and center. Cannot believe I haven't picked it up earlier. I cannot frickin' wait to read this book. I also decided to pick up Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Reni Eddo-Lodge. I have officially decided that in 2021, one of my goals will be to read approximately one nonfiction book per month. A lot of them will be about anti-racist reading, a lot of them feminist readings. I kind of came to the conclusion that I don't think I've been doing enough and like expanding my own horizons. And I want to change that. So I just picked this one up sort of on a whim, sort of going to amass a little collection to read. I have some nonfiction books. If I'm not mistaken, this is like a collection of things, I think, or this book was based off of an article that went super viral by our author here, who said she's no longer talking to white people about race, and it kind of sparked a lot of controversy, which is annoying, but you know how white people are. And I believe this specifically explores racism and stuff in the UK, which a lot of the anti-racist readings and things that you see recommended are American stuff, so I'm excited to see her perspective as well. The next book I found used, and it was such a thrilling find. It's Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. This tied for the Man Booker last year in 2019 with The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. That also was a very controversial thing. A lot of people didn't think Atwood deserved to win it, or it was just sort of an award for like, hey, you're Margaret Atwood, congrats. I have not yet read this, but I agree. I freaking hated The Testaments. I didn't think it was worth being written or awarded, so I'm very excited to read this. I don't often read the blurb, but I think this will do a better job than me summing it up because I don't actually know that much about it. But it says, Girl, Woman, Other is a magnificent portrayal of the intersections of identity and a moving and hopeful story of a group of Black British women. Suffused with empathy and vibrant humor, Girl, Woman, Other is populated with unforgettable characters, from a lesbian playwright to a jaded schoolteacher to a non-binary social media influencer. Sparklingly witty, centering voices we often see othered, and written in an innovative and fast-moving form, this is a polyphonic social novel by a masterful British writer who has finally been lauded at the level she has long deserved. That sounds freaking amazing. I don't often read literary fiction, but definitely will make an exception for this. It sounds wonderful. There are non-binary characters in here as well, which I always love to see the inclusion of. Can't freaking wait. Okay, and then literally on a whim, yesterday I decided to reserve a copy of A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. There's a book club that I enjoy watching, House Salt, on YouTube, and this is their October pick. I've really wanted to read this myself personally. It's a dark academia, high fantasy, where if you mess up, you are literally killed. So that sounds great. And to be honest, I was feeling really sorry for myself yesterday. I was kind of in a crappy mood. I had more freaking doctor's tests and blood work done, and I was just so over it. And I was like, I feel like shit. I'm buying myself a book, and this is what I decided to purchase. This is also one of my most anticipated releases of the year. Can't wait. I'm interested to see it as a dark academia thing, because although in theory I like dark academia, I don't think I've really read much of it. I also fucking hate Ninth House. So hopefully this scratches that itch. I'm excited to read it. It's now on my October TBR, and it's fairly short. Yeah, it's just over 300 pages, so I think I'll be able to fly through it. Okay, so I have hauled 19 books in I guess the past 3-4 months, which I don't think is that bad. It's definitely a lot better than if you saw some of my past purchasing, especially throughout the past years. I was hauling a lot of stuff. Let me know down in the comments below any of the books that I have on this list that you would like to see me read and review, or that you have any specific thoughts on. I would love to know. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!